go by that we do not use the Alter Rebbe Svarim. Whether it's the Shulchan Aruch, whether it's the Tanya, Chitas that we say, or the Siddur that we use. The Alter Rebbe considered the Siddur that he wrote as being one of his great achievements, accomplishments. On the second page I have the 10 accomplishments. The Siddur was a major accomplishment. Alter Rebbe took 60 different Siddurim and put together this Nusach, which is Al-Pi Nusach Arizal. The Arizal did not write a Siddur, he wrote meditations, Al-Pi Kabbalah. The Alter Rebbe wrote a Siddur that should reflect the meditations of the Arizal. In the Yom Yom, the Rebbe writes that that even though you don't know what the meditations are, because the reason why the Alter Rebbe did not put the meditations into the Siddur, because he wanted it to be Hashava L'chol Nefesh, it's for every person. And the meditations are very deep. But the Yom Yom, the Rebbe writes that nevertheless, when you daven, you should have in mind that your davening should capture all of the kavanas of the Arizal. And we know B'dach Klal are the 12 general nuschais corresponding to different Shvatim. Every Shevet had his pathway. When the Yidden left Mitzrayim, when they crossed through Yam Suf, the water split into 12 pathways. There were 12 gates by the Beis Hamikdash. Right, so every nusach corresponded to another shar. But the Arizal Siddur is a Shaveh L'chol Nefesh. The Siddur Alter Rebbe wrote is the most choicest, the most optimal Siddur. It was written Al-Pi Kabbalah, Al-Pi Halacha, Al-Pi Diktuk. It's the most grammatically correct Siddur that's out there. Any maven in grammar will tell you that. There was a Rosh Hashiva in Torah V'das, I'm mentioning the names, who told the Talmidim that no doubt that the Alter Rebbe's Siddur is the most correct in grammar. So they asked him, so why don't you use it? He said, because it's Lubavitch. So we use the Alter Rebbe's Svarim all the time, and there's a concept that we have to feel. As they passed around last night from the handout, and in it you had the Torah Shalom, with the Rebbe Rashab writes that the Alter Rebbe Tzachar, he wrote himself in the Tanya, that when you learn Tanya, you're speaking to the Alter Rebbe. So it's important, right, in this context, to talk about the Alter Rebbe himself, because there is an appreciation that we get from the Alter Rebbe when we learn his teachings. It enlightens us, it inspires us, it strengthens us. But then there's also gaining an appreciation of who the Rebbe himself was. History had many gedolim, many great people, prophets, judges, kings, and most often the greatness of these people emerged later on in life. There's a deeper part of themselves that came out. Something changed, something snapped, there's an epiphany, whatever. A deeper layer came out, and here they are. Some Gedolim became known as great people earlier in life, and very few giants were giants in the day that they were born. Moshe Rabbeinu is an example. Right, we learned yesterday in the Parsha that the daughter of Pari saw that Ki Toivhu, that this child is good. Where else does the Torah use the word Toiv? When Hashem creates the light, he says Ki Toiv. So Rashi says, what does it mean she saw was good? That there's a new light, there's an energy. It's a beautiful sikha. The Rebbe talks about, Haman, that when the Geidel came out to be in the month of Adar, that Haman, says the Gemara, was very excited because he knew that Moshe Rabbeinu died in the month of Adar. What he did not know, says the Gemara, is that Moshe Rabbeinu was born in Adar, and that will work in our favor. So the Rebbe asked the question, since when is the day of birth considered to be greater than the day when a person passes away, especially when you talk about a tzaddik? When a child is born, you don't know what the fate of this child is going to be. It's only at the end of the life that you can look back and say, what an accomplishment. So why does the Gemara say that that Haman did not know that Moshe Rabbeinu was born? What the Gemara should have said is that what Haman did not understand is that when a tzaddik passes away, it's a great thing, it's a great day. And that brings bracha. And the Rebbe answers that there was something very special about Moshe Rabbeinu's birth. In Moshe Rabbeinu's birth, there was a new light that came down into this world that was non-existent. And that's true with the Alter Rebbe. You know the story? Alter Rebbe's parents, Baruch and Rivka, not having a child for a year. By the way, they got married. One of the conditions that Baruch made in marrying Rivka is that he wanted that the marriage should take place on Chai Elul. It just turned out that year Chai Elul was on a Shabbos, so they did the wedding on Friday afternoon. That's why there's been a practice by Chassidim to do weddings on Fridays in some places. But after a year not having children, so they came to the Baal Shem Tov for a bracha. And the Baal Shem Tov blessed them with a child and gave instructions to the mother when she's pregnant, instructions after the birth, to put a yarmulke on the child from the time of the bris, maybe the time of the birth, I'm not sure, to wrap a cloth around the head, protect the child always against the ayin hara, which was unusual for the Baal Shem Tov to say. In fact, when Alter Rebbe was about, 7, 8 years old, Alter Rebbe told the father that they should move from Liozna to Lubavitch to protect him against the ayin hara. Following Chai Elul, the Baal Shem Tov came down to Shul in his big day Shabbos. The clothes that he wears for Shabbos. And he davened to the melodies of Shabbos, which again was something unusual, because the time of Chai Elul, which is getting close to the Rosh Hashanah Kippur, you started to feel already the solemnness in the Baal Shem Tov for the Yom Noirayim. But over here, his mood was elated. And then he announced in Shul that on this day, a neshama chadasha came down into this world. Now you have to understand, when you say neshama chadasha, a new neshama, this something that happens maybe once in 1,000 years. A neshama chadasha means that this is a neshama that is not rooted in Adam Rishon, it's even higher. And that day, the Baal Shem Tov gave all kinds of brachas to the Alter Rebbe. Baal Shem Tov said that there's two lights that came into this world. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, his godless began the time he was born. When the Alter Rebbe was 2 years old, he had already memorized dozens of perakim of Tanakh, but not just memorized, but with a profound understanding. At the age of 8, he wrote a commentary to the Chumash that incorporated in that Pirush the Ramban, Rashi, Even Ezer. So you're probably wondering, where is that Chumash today? When he was 10 years old, Alter Rebbe had a dream. But this is from the Rishimis of Fidik Rebbe. In his dream, he had the three calling him to Din Torah. And they're demanding, they're saying that Alter Rebbe is depriving them, the schus, that their commentary, which would usually be learned by so many people, will now be minimized because of the Alter Rebbe's Pirush. And in the dream, the Alter Rebbe doesn't have a defense, and he's sobbing. And he says, "McCain, I'm going to burn the Sefer." They place their hand on the Alter Rebbe and they give him a bracha that you should be mechadish chedushim, and it's going to be learned by tens of thousands of people ad bias goel tzedek. And this is a dream that reoccurred many times. So the Alter Rebbe burned that pirush. The age of 11, Alter Rebbe gave a shir on Kiddush HaChodesh, the most complicated, complex topic in all of the Sefer Rambam. And Rosh Yeshivas who were there could not follow his shir. At the age of 12, they entitled him, right, the Chevra Kadisha, they already put it into writing, the Rav Tanahu Polig, no kind of a compliment that is. Rav was an Amoira. And the Gemara says that the Rav, he can argue with Tanoim, he's an equal to Tanoim. And that's the praise that they gave for the Alter Rebbe at the age of 12. So you talk about the Alter Rebbe is godless in his lumdus, in the contribution that he made to Torah learning is nothing less than legendary. Just think about the Shulchan Aruch, okay? They say that the Rogatchover wanted to learn only from the Rishonim. Didn't like learning from the Acharayim. So that when he used to learn the Tur Shulchan Aruch, the Torah edition, he used to learn with his arms over the side so he shouldn't peek at the commentary. Didn't want to see what the Beth Yossef has to say, what the Bach has to say. But the Alter Rebbe was the exception. The Alter Rebbe to him was like learning the Rambam. You talk about the Tanya, people don't realize the influence that the Tanya had, how it Pasha changed the vocabulary in the Jewish world. Not talking just about Hasidim, but even the Snagdim. Frume, Freya. Who doesn't talk about the Neshama? Hazak Gut in Neshama. You don't have to be religious to say that. The Pintel Yid. You know, these are concepts that were unheard of. When you talk about a Neshama, Neshama is not something that you can see. And to make it like regular vocabulary, Hashgacha Pratis, Divine Providence, these are all teachings that the Alter Rebbe made popular. And people don't even know it. But to talk about the Alter Rebbe also, not only in his contribution, and as a giant as he was in his learning and his understanding of Torah, but also as a person. When he was 15 years old, he got married. Now the Alter Rebbe was the biggest catch. Really, I mean, he was the apple in the whole town, Liyaz and abroad. Everybody heard about the Alter Rebbe. By the way, not only the Yidden, he was a giant amongst the Goyim. You may have heard that the story. It's printed in many different places. The parts in town, right? He had a sundial that broke, and all the experts and technicians convened to see how they can fix it, how they can repair it, and nobody came up with the right answer. And one of them noticed children playing in the yard. The Alter Rebbe was playing amongst them, and the game that they were playing was Castle. And in the game, they have a sundial, and the sundial doesn't work. And the Alter Rebbe is there to give the solution. And the Alter Rebbe is pointing in a certain direction, right, saying that there's a tree that grew very tall that's blocking the sunlight. This guy is listening and he says, maybe this kid knows what he's talking about. He went, it was a few miles down. He went in that direction, and sure enough, it was what the Alter Rebbe said. The richest man, could say, in all of Russia, Jew, the richest Jew, was Rabbi Yehuda Leib Segel. He had a business. He used to sell alcohol, beer. It was a business that was in the family for 10 generations. And he wanted the Alter Rebbe as a son-in-law. And the agreement was that he was going to give the Alter Rebbe 50,000 ruble. And if you want to know the equivalent today of that sum of money, it's $5 million. So $5 million was given to the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe said he's in agreement on condition that nobody tells him, including the father-in-law, what to do with the money. Once he's given the money belongs to him. Agreed. Together with his wife, they took a decision that they are going to use this money. They're going to open up a gemach, a gemilas chesed. And what the money was primarily used for is really to give people jobs. Alter Rebbe encouraged very much. Think about it, 15 years old, to go out to the farm and start, developing your land, make a parnasa. He did it actually with a heta iska. Told the money is supposed to come back, no less for sure. But the fact of the matter is, he saw none of that money. All gone. Alter Rebbe Pashut lived in poverty. So you would think that, well, that seems to be irresponsible, reckless. But it's not the case. For the Alter Rebbe, it was negeya ben nefesh, that people be helped. That after he got married, he was in Vitebsk, there was a following, people wanted to learn with the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe put that in as a tanai, that they have to do the same thing. They have to put the money to help and to support the people with the gemilas chesed. What the Alter Rebbe did for Eretz Yisrael, also considered to be one of his great accomplishments. The money that he sent to Eretz Yisrael, Pasha with Mesiras Nefesh. Because remember, that was one of the accusations that was leveled against him, that he's supporting the enemy of Russia. But for the Alter Rebbe, it was a tremendous chus to support the brethren living in Eretz Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe had a special love, for Bali Tshuva. Interesting thing. The Chassidim used to talk about the three great lovers of the Jewish people. It was Abzusha Anapola, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, and the Alter Rebbe. Abzusha Anapola, he was known that he would never see bad in another person. He never saw negative. He only saw positive. Once found money, the joke, found money, and he wanted to put it in a safe place. What could be a more safe place than to put the money in the Chumash? Not only is he going to put the money in the Chumash, he'll place it by the pasuk where it says Loi Signoiv. Nobody's ever going to take away that. Comes back, he sees the money's gone, it's not in that page. And he starts to flip through the pages, and now he sees half the money. And he looks a little bit closer, and he sees the pasuk, V'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha. So Reb Zusha says, take a look. When Zusha finds something, he thinks everything belongs to himself. At least the other guy knows a half he has to give away. Right. The 7 things that Reb Zusha was able to learn from Maganav. He was able to see the positive in every single person. I believe Yitzchak of Berditchev was known. He was famous for his Melamed Chus. Right, the Maggid of Mezritch said about Rabbi Levi Yitzchak that Rabbi Levi opened up new gates and Shemayim of Limud Zchus. If he saw someone greasing the tires when they have the tefillin on them, so somebody else would say, what a chutzpah, what a disrespect, you're wearing tefillin, this is what you're doing. I believe Yitzchak would spin that around and says, take a look at a Jew. Even when they're greasing the tires, look what they're doing, they're wearing tefillin. Two ways of looking at it. Right, when he saw a Jew smoking on Yom Kippur, he approached him, says, do you not know that today is Yom Kippur? And the Jew says, I do know. Do you not know that on Yom Kippur you're not supposed to smoke? He says, I know that you're not supposed to smoke. Right, so I believe Yitzchak looks up to Shemaim, take a look, a Yid. He knows it's Yom Kippur. He knows you're not supposed to smoke on Yom Kippur, and he can't tell a lie. Melamed Zchus on every situation. The Alter Rebbe was a little bit different. He saw the negative. He did see, not turn away. He was open to it. However, he embraced that person no less. He often used to say, this is a quote from the Maggid, he so often quoted, that in the Mesifta de Rekiah, that in Shemayim they're saying that medaf lib haben a rasha gomer punkt via tzadi gomer und efshe nachmer. That in Shemayim they say you have to love the rasha gomer, the utter rasha, no less than you love the tzaddik gomer, and maybe even more. That was the Alter Rebbe. Actually, the story is told about the Kollel Rebbe. Had a dream, and it was a dream that haunted him, that he did a tainis cholom. He fasted for that dream. The Alter Rebbe was concerned for his health. He asked him why he was fasting. And he told the Alter Rebbe the dream he had. He saw a tall man, red-headed, and on his right side was a short person, kind of a swollen leg, and on the left side was you. And you came to a river, and the river had no bridge to bring you over from one end to the other end. So what was there was a log that went from one end to the other. It was like a makeshift bridge. And the man in the middle says to the person on his right, walk across the bridge. And as soon as that person put his foot on the log, there was this stormy wind and waves that came his way, that it was only with nisim of niflois that he was able to make it across the bridge. And then the man told you to walk across the bridge, and as soon as you put your foot on that log, everything became quiet. The winds subsided. So Alter Rebbe says to the Kollel Rebbe, for this you have to fast. The man in the middle was the Baal Shem Tov. The man on his right was the Maggid, and on the left was Alter Rebbe. So the Kollel Rebbe asks the Alter Rebbe, so why is it that when the Maggid put his foot on the log there was such a storm, but when you did it, it was quiet? So the Alter Rebbe said, how could you compare? Ich habe gemacht Bali Tshuvas. I made Bali Tshuvas. Now clearly the Maggid inspired a great deal of Bali Tshuvas. The Talmidim of the Maggid, it's recounted, made so many Bali Tshuvas. But the Maggid himself directly had nothing to do with Bali Tshuvas. He had his group of 120 tzaddikim, and that's who he worked with. Right? Whereas the Alter Rebbe, we saw the Gem Poral, you see how it was involved, Pasha, there's a lot of stories involved with making Bali Tshuvas. And one of the stories that is told is 15 years after the Alter Rebbe passed away. There were two businessmen who went to the cave of the Alter Rebbe, and they were mishtateach, pasha davening there by the cave. And somebody asked them what had happened, because they were there with bechiyas. What happened was that these two businessmen drifted somewhat from their upbringing, and they partnered in the business, and their business brought them to Haditch, with the Alter Rebbe passed away. Not we passed away, he's buried. Now they went to this inn, and the innkeeper sees two people, and they look like Jews, not so frum, and he offered them food, and he asked them, is it important to you that the food that we serve you be kosher? Is it important to you that the wine we serve you be kosher? He said, that doesn't matter. Give us whatever you have. Guy walks out. Next thing these two business people see happening is two guys walk in, holding a butcher knife, push it ready to shechten. So at that moment they had his oiderus. They had an awakening. And at that moment they did a sincere, deep tshuva. Meanwhile the guy walked out, comes back in, serving them food, kiyad melech, everything on the plate is kosher. So they're totally confused. This is this is so bizarre. What happened over here? So the innkeeper told him, 15 years ago, there was a man who was here, Alter Rebbe, and told me that when two people are going to walk into the inn, and they're going to ask for food, and you're going to offer them if it has to be kosher or not, and they're going to say, they're going to make light of it, it's not important, you'll know what to do with them. Alter Rebbe saw already, so many years ago, that these people are going to need that kind of assistance. You know, if you want to know about the Alter Rebbe, the life of the Alter Rebbe, the best way to know it is through the Tanya. Because as is said in Torah Shalom, the Rebbe Rashab says that the Alter Rebbe hat sich hereingeschrieben in the Tanya. The Tanya really is a story of the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe did not write a sefer to impress people with his chidushim. Think about it. He doesn't even put his name in the Tanya. He put 20 years of work into it. And how does he entitle it? Sefer Lekutei Amarim. This is a book, it's a collection of sayings. I challenge you to find me those sayings in any other sefer. The genius of this sefer is remarkable. But the Alter Rebbe was putting his nefesh. This is his story that he's putting into the Tanya. He was expressing himself in the Tanya. When the Alter Rebbe talks about, you're learning before, Aves Yisrael. By the way, there's nobody that explains the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael v'Hafta l'Reacha Kamoicha the way the Alter Rebbe does. Nobody. You look in the Ramban, you look in all the other Svarim, the way they understand v'Hafta l'Reacha Kamoicha, it's on a behavioral level, that you should be ready to do for the other person whatever you're ready to do for yourself. But to say to someone that they should love, the feeling, your feeling towards the other should be the same that you have towards yourself. It's impossible. You love yourself unconditionally. You're saying I should love the other person unconditionally. How could you say that? We're not the same. We're two separate entities. So that's why all the Mefarshim say, what does it mean? It means you should be ready to do. It's an asiyah, but it's not in the feeling. What does the Alter Rebbe say? It's mamish, literally. Minefesh gadol v'yat katan. It doesn't matter who it is. You have to love every single person as much as yourself, because on the neshama level, we are all one. Now, when the Alter Rebbe was saying that, it's not a pirush. He's not giving you here a commentary. He's not giving you a chiddush. This is his life. That's the way he lived his life. He loved every person kamoicha mamish, and he was expressing himself in the Tanya. When the Alter Rebbe says "Vehevei shefal ruach b'fnei kol adam," very strong statement. Again, here, what does that mean? I'm Mefarshim grapple with that. You should be shval ruach before every single person without exception. A Rosh Gomer, you should see yourself as being less than that person. Vevidanis kol adam l'kaf schus, judge every person meritoriously. You see someone who's a mechal Shabbos b'fahesi, you see someone who's a ganiv and everything else, I should give him the benefit of the doubt. So you think again, you look at all the Mefarshim, how do they explain? Say, well, if you don't know if the person was over or not, give the person the benefit of the doubt. But if mamish in front of your eyes that you're seeing this happening, how could you give the person the benefit of the doubt? How could you be the consequence? How can you say that in front of a person like that, heavy shaval ruach b'fnei kol adam? And the Alter Rebbe devotes a number of parakim to say that means mamish, literally, and he shows you how, which is so beautiful in the Tanya. This is his story. It's not about somebody. This is Taka lived this way. I think the Alter Rebbe, the giant that he was, think how he was living. He was looking at another person, right, and he saw himself as shval ruach before that person, no matter who that person was. Just touch upon the next page. Talk about the accomplishments of the Alter Rebbe. Shechnach, we already spoke about the Siddur. I also mentioned, just go through these things briefly. Tikkun HaMikveh. This was actually related to the size of a mikveh. Alter Rebbe made a takana that the mikveh should be big enough that if you go into the mikveh and you spread yourself over the water, it should be enough room. Unlike us just going into the mikveh upright, going down, so this way that the water can make contact with every part of the body. So he gave a certain dimension how the mikveh should be. Some people say that the Balped, Alter Rebbe also made the kind of mikveh that you should be able to go into a hot mikveh on Shabbos, because that was a big discussion. If you go into a hot mikveh on Shabbos, Alter Rebbe was masakin that you can do it. I think every mikveh today has sheikh's knife. You know, the halacha is that the knife that the sheikh uses has to be a sharp knife and it has to be smooth, so not to cause any delay in the shechita. Because if there's a delay, if there's a pausing in the shechita could be invalid. That's why it's important that it's to be smooth, sharp. Sometimes it's difficult to find both, sharp and smooth, because typically the smooth knives have like a thicker blade. Sharp ones are very thin. Alter Rebbe preferred that it be sharp than being thick, than being smooth. So there's different kinds of metal. There's the polished metal, and then there's the forged metal. Alter Rebbe made a takana that they should use the knife, the polished metal that's sharper. And by the way, that was one of the reasons that they put the Alter Rebbe into Cheder. It's making new takanas over here, shchita. Today, there isn't a sheikhet in the world, doesn't matter, chassid, not chassid, Svardi, Ashkenazi, that does not use the chalaf of the Alter Rebbe. So that's a takana that was passed through. Okay, we publicized in Chassidus, because that was an enormous challenge for the Alter Rebbe. Not only that he had to overcome the challenges with the Misnagdim, he found it even more difficult to overcome the challenge with his own colleagues. The Talmidei HaMagid were very upset with the Alter Rebbe. The famous meeting that they had, they all convened together to discuss the progress in Chassidus, and over there they kind of yelled at him that, what is he bringing in Chassidus Chabad? You're going away from the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid. They couldn't get him, and the Alter Rebbe said that pained him more than the opposition that he was getting from the Misnagdim. But what did he do? He came back home and he told right away his Talmidim, guys are not working hard enough. Go out there and you have to capture more neshamas of Chassidus. Chassidus Chabad. Sitting in jail, the Alter Rebbe considered to be a tremendous privilege, because he understood that the reason that he is there, he's basically replacing the Baal Shem Tov. Because it was a kitrug milmayla, right, that this part of Torah is being revealed. But who's the one who started it? It was the Baal Shem Tov. So the Alter Rebbe saw himself in jail as in place of the Baal Shem Tov. And for him that was a tremendous chus. At one point they asked Alter Rebbe, and he was sitting, he said, what is it about the Baal Shem Tov that when he davens, that he often says af? Because that's one of the things the Misnagdim said about the Alter Rebbe, that the af means anger, and the Baal Shem Tov is trying to tap into the wrath of Hashem to hurt you. So the Alter Rebbe explained them, but the Alter Rebbe said, I could have just told him it was a gesture, af. When people say things, you stutter, you say af. But if I would have said that, said the Alter Rebbe, I wouldn't be telling the truth. And so I would be disconnected for that moment from the Baal Shem Tov, and I didn't want to be disconnected even for one moment. So for the Alter Rebbe was a schus to sit in jail. Nigun, song. A serious Jew did not sing. Time of the Alter Rebbe, Nigun was considered to be primitive, simple. That's for the Pashut. But if you are a serious bacher, you're a serious Jew, you don't sing. You learn. You harva. The Alter Rebbe saw Nigun as being something that is deep, very deep. That it can take you to places in your neshama that seichel cannot get you there. In one of the visits that Alter Rebbe came to a city that was a hotbed of misnagdim, and he made an offer to all the people that he'll give the drasha on Shabbos. Everybody can come with any question that they have, any question on emunah or whatever it may be, and he's going to answer the questions. Everybody prepared their questions. Rebbe gets up there, and everyone is, this one has that question, this question. After everybody finished the questions, Alter Rebbe said, here's the answer. And he started to sing a nigun. And he was singing a nigun, and everyone got into it. At the end of the nigun, nobody had any questions. Nobody was looking for any answers. 15 minutes later, Alter Rebbe was already on his way. They came running after the Alter Rebbe. But you didn't answer the questions. Give us the answers. And the Alter Rebbe says no. He says, all I needed to show you was that there's a place in you that is much deeper than Seichel. And that place has no questions and needs no answers. And we know in Nigun, there are different kinds of Nigunim. There are joyful Nigunim. There are Niguns of introspection. Nigunim of Devekus. There's Nigunim of yearning and longing. And every Nigun really taps into a different place in the neshama. One activates the chesed, another one is the gevurah teferes. One's deeper than the seichel. So the Alter Rebbe saw it as a great achievement that he was able to reingefit nigunim, that people should start to sing Pashut. Alter Rebbe himself, right, composed 10 nigunim. Then the universal acceptance of writing, which needs no elaboration, and guarantee that any effort that is going to be made to bring Yiras Shamayim, right, will succeed. And I think that being here at the Chai Center is a great endorsement to that. And Chabad houses all over the world, you see the tremendous Hatzlacha which the Alter Rebbe foresaw already when he spoke about his accomplishments. And this day, which is such a milestone, that's 200 years, we should all be inspired by the Rebbe's teachings and the Alter Rebbe's life, and we should continue to be Futza Meinesechel Chutza, and to be Zeicha to be as Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'Kara Mamish.